You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies, and today my guest is the Czar of Noir and my friend and host of Noir Alley on TCM, Eddie Muller. Good to see you, Eddie.
Good to see you, Jan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well. Very well. It's extremely busy. I'm winding up 2025 and I'm planning 2026, my film festivals and all kinds of stuff. So very busy, I'm happy to say.
That's good. That's good. We'll talk a little bit about your film festivals as we get through. But today I want to talk about your amazing book, Dark City Dames, and this is what is this? This is an extended version, a revised and expanded
Revised and expanded,
expanded
yes.
of Dark City Dames. When did the first one come out?
Very early, it was either late 2021 or early 20, wait, not 2021. I mean, it was 25 years ago.
Oh,
So like
okay. So we're
2001 or
2001.
2002, something around
Okay.
there. Yeah.
So what made you decide to do a revised and expanded edition of Dark City Dames?
I had always wanted to get the book back in print because it's my favorite of all the books that I have done. And I just felt like, well, I can't say the original edition of the book was a huge success. I mean, it was, it got published. Let's put it that way. Um,
Good, good.
but I kind of felt like it was a little bit ahead of the curve, and I felt that it would be very timely to get this book back in print. Just for everything that happened in between, like the whole Me Too movement, and women talking about the difficulties of being an actress in Hollywood, and how the business is not always doesn't always treat you particularly well. And I said, boy, it's interesting that this is not a new subject. This has been going on for quite a while. And so I wanted to get the book back in print, and also, I know a lot more than I knew when I wrote it the first time. Uh, and I just wanted to also give some other performers their due who I was unable to mention the first time around. And so that was great that they let me revise and expand, as the title says.
And it's also being published by Running Press, which is
Yeah, the work with Running, because Running Press is like the official publisher for Turner Classic Movies,
right.
and it is a absolute pleasure to work with them.
Yeah, and
Uh,
their books are beautiful. This is a beautiful book. It really is. Go on.
yes, they do a wonderful job, and they give me, um, the I get to have the final say on everything, which is very nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Didn't always have that in my career. So, but they just do a fabulous job. My editor, Cindy Sapala, is great. The production people are all great. And, I get treated very well, and it is greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought it back out again and you added more amazing actresses to this book. And there's a lot I want to talk about, but you've added Joan Bennett, who I definitely want to talk about, Gail Russell, Rhonda Fleming, Claire Trevor, and just to name a few that you've added to this book. The story, you had incredible access because you interviewed each one of these women that are in this book and have had and have, for those who may still be alive, deep personal relationships with these women. How did you get access, and how did that all come about?
Um, it's interesting. It came about because they were still alive. Uh, big surprise. Women outlive men. So when I started doing my film festivals in Hollywood, which that began in 1999, and there was a fellow in Hollywood named Marvin Page who was a casting director. He cast General Hospital for years and years, and Marvin was very much a fan of older movies, and so he was a little bit of a guardian angel for a lot of the old Hollywood actors and actresses, because he loved to, if somebody was showing a movie, he would always say, he'd call up the theater and say, so and so is still alive. They'd love to come and meet the audience and blah, blah, blah. And so that's actually what happened. So I owe a debt of gratitude to Marvin for doing that, because those 6 actresses were all people that he uh, brought to my festival. So that's how I met Evelyn Keyes and Colleen Gray and Audrey Totter and Jane Greer, and out of that, I did a new article for Los Angeles Magazine, just profiling these actresses in a very, very rudimentary fashion to kind of promote the fact that they would all be appearing at my film festival. And then out of that grew the idea, just talking to them, like, wow, this is fabulous to have this access. And I convinced them to tell me everything. That's basically what happened, right?
Well,
And it took a while. I mean, you know, just meeting them and hanging out with them and becoming a part of their lives. I mean, it was like a year. Um, and it was funny when just before we came on to do this, you were saying that you had just talked to Alicia
right.
Malone, my beloved colleague, and
Yes.
it reminds me when I was doing this book that I would like have breakfast and lunch with Marie Windsor, and then that same day I'd go and have dinner with Evelyn Keyes or something, and it was just, and then they did start to act like, so who did you see in addition to me today?
Jealous lovers, I'm sure
Yeah,
they felt.
there was a little bit of that. It was pretty funny. Anyway, so that's how it all came about, and I'm so grateful to them that they were as honest and open as they were, and because what's interesting about the book is it's not just about their careers in Hollywood; it's really about their lives and who they were as people, and how they dealt with the fact that actresses at a certain point, unless you're really lucky, unless you're Kate Blanchett or Helen Mirren or Meryl Streep, they don't necessarily let you age gracefully in Hollywood.
Nope.
And so these were actresses who all, obviously there's the film noir connection. So they were by and large, except like in the case of Colleen Gray, they were the other woman, the dangerous woman. Colleen was, the antithesis of that. She was the shining ray of light in the noir films. But it was so interesting that, um, and it was just worked out perfectly for me because they all were under contract to different studios. So just telling their stories very matter of factly, I also got a real insider's look at how the studios themselves were different and how they treated people differently. And then in some cases, like Jane Greer's relationship with Howard Hughes was, particularly dramatic in that regard, or Evelyn's relationship with Harry Cohn at Columbia. And it's great to talk to people at that stage of their life because they don't really have much.
Right.
They don't give a, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And so they were happy to put it on the record and share it. And I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and they felt they had nothing to lose at this stage, and obviously, they trusted you, and and felt that you would tell their story in the right way. And I'm sure that took some time to gain some of the trust from some of these wonderful, amazing women because they had,
Absolutely. And
they were in an industry that, tossed them around and didn't treat them right, and certainly would not feel trustworthy, I would think, of many men, having been in some of those situations.
yes. And it was very, um, it's just interesting because they, while they were open and told me all of the stuff, the good and the bad, none of them were embittered by it.
Hmm.
They were very keen eyed and self aware. At one point, it was funny in the middle of my relationship with Evelyn. She said, this is kind of strange because until I talked to you, I hadn't really thought that I maybe had made mistakes in
Mm.
my career because she admitted that she didn't really struggle or try to have a better career than she had, and she was saying, I just took every part they offered. I just did it. I never like managed my career in any way to say, why am I not getting better parts? Everything that you hear actors say today never
Right.
even occurred to Evelyn to say any of that, right? Or to act in her own best interest. She just did what she was told and made her life the most important thing for her, not her work.
Right, right. And again, it's a different era, where women, once they had a career and then they got married and had children, their careers were kind of over at that point. They, look, did not do as much, let's put it that way, many of them.
Right,
But,
right,
Katharine Hepburn never had children, so her career went for a long, long, long time, and
right.
and again, they were under that studio system and under contract, so they kind of had to do what they were told.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because I just feel that the book turned out so well, in my opinion,
It did.
because the because these women were all very different people. And it I just was very lucky in that regard because they all did the same thing at the same time in the same place. They all faced the same pressures and the same obstacles and all this stuff, but they were all very, very different people. And there's no agenda with this book.
Mhm.
So what you just described as a woman whose career was over once she got married and had children, Audrey Totter was perfectly happy with that.
Mm.
Right? I mean, she had a terrific career. She liked what she did. She was proud of her work. She wanted to keep working, but there was no mistaking the fact that when she fell in love with her husband, that was the love of her life. She wanted to be his wife. She wanted to have a child with him, and it was 100% believable. I mean, that love story is so incredible. And I would be with Audrey talking, we'd have dinner or something, and she would just, her husband Leo had died, like 8 years earlier or something. And she would just start crying in the
Mm.
middle of dinner because, and just would tell stories about, I did this with Leo and we did this. And it was just so incredibly genuine. But then at the same token, she would turn around and say, I can't believe that I didn't get that part in Titanic because, Gloria Stewart got that part and I tested for it.
I did not know that. So it's
Well,
great.
I think if you were over 80, if you were an actress in Hollywood who was over 80, I think you got called to test for that role in
For that
Titanic.
film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit. Joan Bennett. I thought that story was, she definitely was part of noir, her own
Oh,
life,
absolutely.
her own life. So I mean, because it's really a fascinating story. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that story? Because I was like, wow.
No, I mean, Joan Bennett, had that brief moment where she was actually on the front pages as a real life femme fatale because she was having an affair. She was married to Walter Wanger, but she was having an affair with her agent, Jennings Lang. And they had a little afternoon tryst in Beverly Hills one day. And when Jennings Lang dropped her off at her car I think it was in the MCA parking lot, Walter Wanger was waiting and shot Jennings Lang, and then just turned himself over to the police. He didn't kill him; he wounded him, and yeah, it was like all over the papers. And I found it so typical. Let's just say typical that Walter Wanger went to prison. What constituted prison, which was like the going to the Beverly Hilton or something, and the Castaic Honor Farm. I forget how long he was there, 8 months or something. And Jennings Lang recovered, and they all kind of made up in the press. But Joan Bennett didn't work for almost 2 years because of that, because she was the one who like fared the worst in the whole
Right.
thing.
Well,
And
yeah. Back
but
in,
happily, she had a long career after that. I mean, she had an extraordinary career from the time she was extremely young in the 1930s, making movies with, her sisters, Constance and Barbara. And then she went all the way through the noir era where she completely changed her career. Then she started playing mothers in the 50s, right? She's in Father of the Bride and all that. And she just and then in she did Dark Shadows, the horror soap opera in the late 60s, early 70s, and had a whole other fabulous end to her career. Well, one of the things, Jan, that was so uh, interesting about being able to do this revised edition and include a story like Joan Bennett's was obviously the key thing in the first edition was that all the women were still alive. And so I could interview them. So you were getting it straight from them, right? And when I did the revised edition, I said, well, now, this gives me the opportunity to profile some women who weren't as fortunate, who didn't make it out of the Hollywood meat grinder, so to
hmm
speak.
hmm
And so to be able, Joan Bennett was, had both. She had the scandal and she had the great successes. But to be able to write about Gail Russell and Peggy Castle and Helen Walker and actresses like that was wonderful because it provided this balance that made you appreciate the stories of the six original women who lived well into their late 80s, in some cases beyond that. Uh, and so to have those other, you know, tragic stories as ballast for that, I think makes the book even better.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. With you had some very interesting relationships. Yeah, I'll just name a few. You can tell me if you want to share some of the stories. Marie Windsor and Audrey Totter and Jane Greer. Um, you you had some, yeah, you wrote in the afterword about those relationships, and I don't know if you want to share that. And I loved what you had to say, though, Eddie. Really, I wrote this down at you that you felt because of the relationships you had with these women doing these interviews and getting to know them and becoming friends with them, that you became a better person
Oh yeah.
and you became more compassionate and understanding. What a wonderful gift that you received. I'm sure they felt they received a gift by you writing about them and their stories, but what a wonderful gift that you received.
Uh, Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, writing this book made me a different person, and I believe a better person because I learned how to listen. I learned how to not have preconceived ideas. A lot of times journalists go in and honestly, it's like I know exactly what this is going to be and I know how this is going to turn out. So they're tuned to hear what they want to hear. Like, oh, there's the good quote. I'll use that, and they're not just listening.
hmm
And
hmm
what if the point of the story is not what you thought it was going in, right? What if it takes you somewhere else? And so to me, writing this book was the great reward in writing this book was that I had their trust.
hmm
That was the most important thing. And because I told them going in, you don't get to read this, right? Uh, because I just knew that I'm writing about six different women, and they had big personalities, believe me. And I wasn't going to get into six different rewrites of the book, and
Right.
it was going to drive me crazy if I allowed them to say, "Well, Eddie, I read it, and I decided I really don't want you to say this, or I don't want to be quoted on that." So I said, "Look, here's the deal, right? You're going to talk to me, and if you say yes, I agree, you're in." And that's it. You're not going to get to see anything until this book is published in between covers. You just have to trust that I'm going to spend enough time with you that you're going to know my goal is not to ambush you or to embarrass you in any way. I just want to give a full portrait of who you are and what your life was about. And I'm very proud of the fact that that worked, and that they all read it eventually, and I got no pushback whatsoever.
I was
I mean,
gonna
their families were sometimes a little surprised. Jane Greer's sons were like, "Wow, I can't believe she told you that stuff," you know. But it was very, very rewarding. Really was.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Was there anything when you went to do the expanded version that surprised you? Did you want to maybe add more or less, or, did you have anything that came up that you went, oh, well, maybe I don't want to do this, or maybe, anything
Hmm.
that changed for
Um,
you? Because as you said, you start to write some, I mean, and I've heard this before too, even with film sometimes, a screenwriter will start to write a script one way and then they start into the film and it goes in a different direction than they
yeah,
expected it to
yeah.
do that.
Um, I don't know. Um, that's an interesting question. Sometimes there were things maybe, and this is odd. I'm going to answer this in a very unexpected way, Jan.
Okay.
I felt this more when I wrote Tab Hunter's autobiography, right? Because there were things I learned about Tab that I think other biographers would have said, "Oh, I got to include that," because, but I just, there were like three or four stories in Tab, that aren't in the book,
Mm-hmm.
where I just said, this is going to throw everything out of balance. Because you know how sometimes a celebrity biography comes out and the reviewers latch on to the one thing. They latch onto this one juicy
Right.
story and it obliterates the whole purpose of the book, right? When Esther Williams's biography came out, the only thing reviewers talked about was that she said that Jeff Chandler was a cross dresser, right? That was it. And like, that became the lead. And it's like, well, this isn't a book about Jeff Chandler. It's actually a
Right.
book about Esther Williams. So I don't understand, and kind of the same thing happened with Maureen O'Hara's book. She said a few things about John Ford in there that took people by surprise. And that's all anybody ever talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So I said with Tab, there's a couple of stories in here that we really shouldn't put in the book, because then they're not going to see the full picture that we want to present. And I don't feel that's lying or withholding anything. It's just like, no, it's detracting from the story that you really want to tell.
Right.
And honestly, it's, the story we told was very, very truthful. And I feel all of that applies to the Dark City Dames book as well. I mean, I remember asking Audrey at one point, I said, "Do you really want me to believe that you are as wholesome as you're making yourself out to be? Do you mean to tell me that you never?" And she said, "Eddie, I'm not, I have a few things that are going to stay my
Yeah.
secrets,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and because in the end, it's, if I told you these things, it would be like something that was 2 or 3 days out of my life. And then you realize that's not who I am, but
Right.
you put it in the book, and then that's all anybody's going to think
There.
about from
Yeah.
then on. Right.
Yeah.
So it takes great restraint to really do that,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just felt like I need to, I am certain in my heart that, I depicted those women for who they are.
Right.
And the stuff that I chose to leave out does not alter that in any way. I mean, when you read the profile of Marie Windsor, you get Marie Windsor. That is exactly who she is.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful book. It's a great one to put on your coffee table and to refer to. And it's a great one for Christmas. I'm going to hold it up again, Eddie. So hopefully everybody can see it.
There you go. Hey,
Okay, so
Jan, let me ask you a question, Jan,
yes, yes, sir.
because the book is unusually structured in that it's in split in half between the women when they're in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s, and then the second half of the book is their lives later on. It kind of flashes back to show you how they got there, but they're older in the second half of the book, and Hollywood has left them behind, so to speak. And I'm just curious how you read the book. Did you read each profile all the way through, or did you read the first half of the book in total and then the second half of the book?
I what I did was read the profile of the woman, that you originally wrote, and then I went and read the profile later. So I
Okay,
kept
so
them
you read those consecutively.
consecutively. Yes,
Okay,
because
I got
that kept it. Because if I had read all the other ones, I would have forgotten what I
right.
had read about, when I go back to look at it. So,
I think
yeah,
most people, I think most people do read the book that way.
and that's why I like it a lot. I like the way that you did it that way, because it makes it's
Yeah, I
fascinating.
want to give credit to the woman who published the book, Judith Regan, who is the dragon lady of
Yes.
publishing to many, many people.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
Judith treated me extremely well, and she saw the vision for this book, that it wasn't just like a coffee. Thank you for calling it a coffee table book, but there's a lot more writing in it than
Oh,
most
there's
coffee
no, it's
table
yeah,
books.
this is true. But in the sense of this is a great reference book when you're watching your show, when it's on, the Noir
Right,
Alley,
right.
and you want to find out about that actress that you may not know much about. This is a great book to go to and look up that actress, and then you can go and look at her
Oh
life
yeah,
later. And so because so often we don't, once they kind of, when actors and actresses leave Hollywood, they kind of just get forgotten. They, as you say, not as many people are interested in them. They're not doing as much. And so this is fascinating to look at their lives, after that, after being in Hollywood and many other things. I mean, Rhonda Fleming, we could talk about her too. I think that was an also
right,
interesting story
right.
with her. But
Well, that was very interesting that when I was putting the book together originally, there were several actresses that did not agree to participate, right? And Rhonda was one of them.
right. Do you want to share
And
that story?
but then we became very good friends, and she did all kinds of stuff with me. She appeared in public with me. She gave money to a restoration I was doing of one of her films. I mean, there was nothing contentious about it at all. She just didn't want her life open to public scrutiny, right? Because she ended up becoming quite the philanthropist in not just in LA, but I think Rhonda Fleming was like at the top of every list of you know philanthropic donors in Southern California. And she just said, "There's no percentage in this, Eddie, for me to do this because people will, I'm too important to people as a funder for me to have people say things behind my back or whatever. So she didn't want to do it, and it just struck me as odd that it was the women who had done really well, who like married really well and had a lot of money, that were much more guarded about speaking on the record than like Ann Savage, who lived in a one-bedroom apartment and worked as a legal clerk, right, and really had no estate to speak of.
Hmm. Hmm.
She was completely open. Like, why? What do I have to lose?
Right, right, right.
So that was kind of intriguing. And of course, the other woman that I wanted to mention was Marcia Hunt, who I
Mhm.
became very, very close with and actually had the pleasure of working with. And Marcia was someone who I never even considered for the first edition of the book because she was not in any way synonymous with film noir. But then, she did make a couple of them. And then once I met Marcia and realized this is one of the greatest human beings I'll ever know,
Right.
and then worked with her, had the pleasure of working with her, making a film with her. It was like, how do I not include her in this? Because to me, she's just she's just the
Yeah.
greatest person I've ever known.
Ah, that's great. It is. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. It really is. And anybody who loves old Hollywood and film noir and these wonderful actresses, it's a wonderful book. By the way, Tab Hunter is buried here at the Santa Barbara Cemetery.
I didn't know that you were in Santa Barbara. Yes.
Oh, yes, I moved to Santa Barbara almost 4 years ago.
Oh, fantastic. I know I was at that service. So
Were
yes.
you? Wow, wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Tab and I became very, very close friends in the making of that book. So yeah. Um, yep, I was at that service and I know exactly where he is interred. Yes.
Yeah, well, there's a cemetery tour that we have here, and so Ronald Coleman's here. We have a lot of famous people who are buried in the Santa Barbara cemetery.
Wow. I
So
didn't know that Ronald Coleman was there.
Ronald Coleman, oh yes, I took a last. Well, yeah, it's a long story. We'll talk about that off camera. Anyhow,
Okay. Okay.
we'll talk about that. Anyhow, Eddie, I it's always a joy. I could talk to you forever and ever. Oh, let's quickly talk about your film festival. You coming your Noir.
Yeah, the Noir
The
City Film Festival. Well, I'm winding up. This when will this air, Jan?
This is going to air in December.
Okay, so I have wound up my 2025 circuit of festivals, which is now like 8 or 9 cities
Wow,
in
wow,
America,
wow.
and but I'll be starting in January a whole new year of festivals, and I'm just really excited about it. It's been great, and TCM has been so wonderful because my festivals have nothing really to do with Turner Classic Movies, but there's this wonderful synergy because of the Noir Alley show, and they have no problem with me using the show to like promote the festivals, and because it's a two-way street in that
Right,
regard.
exactly.
So it's been great. It really has been fun. The show's just been a huge success, and it's so nice to hear from the fans who run the gamut from the older fans who appreciate how much passion I have for this stuff that they grew up with. And then it's especially gratifying to have the younger fans, like teenagers, write to you and say, "Thank you for introducing me to this stuff. It's so
Wow,
wonderful."
wow.
I mean, this is why TCM is here, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the whole point is to keep the love of classic cinema alive. And so it's good. It's good. And I'm telling you, the reaction to the Dark City Dames book has been so positive that it gives me great hope that it's not just the diehard older fans that are buying it. It's
That's
it's younger people as well.
so great to hear. And before we go, because I did want to say this, Hollywood Reporter lauded your book as one of the 100 greatest film books of all time. What
That
a
was that was Dark City, the
yeah,
lost world of film noir. Yeah,
yeah,
uh, that was very gratifying to
yeah.
have that. Got to tell you, I and I'll share something with you, Jan. I was on the list of people who got to vote for those books,
Oh wow.
and I didn't vote for
You
myself.
didn't vote for well, it's yeah,
I didn't, and I said, well, that's a shame. I would have moved up a few places on the list if I had voted
maybe.
for myself. But
Maybe.
but but trust me, there were like 10 or 12 film books that like are so responsible for what I do
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
that I felt obligated, like, well, of course I got to vote for this.
Right, right,
And
right.
I never imagined that I would. Honestly, I never imagined that I would be included on that list. So that was great that there were a number of other people who voted for it because it
Yeah.
wasn't me.
That's wonderful. Eddie, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Unfortunately, our time is up, but I will see you in April for the Turner Classic
Fantastic.
Movie Film Festival. I can't wait
It
to
is
see
always a
you.
pleasure to see you, Jan. So I look
Always,
forward to that.
always, always, always. I always enjoy seeing you too, Eddie. Thank you so much for being on the show. Huge success to Dark City Dames. It's a great book, everybody. Get it for your family and friends for the holidays. Bye.
Thank you, Jan.
Take care. Have a good day.